Hello and welcome to an episode where we discuss cybersecurity and issues of privacy. My name is Mehek Dua and I am an assistant professor teaching journalism at Delhi University. The objectives of this lesson are to understand the issues and challenges related to privacy and cybersecurity and to identify the various types of online threats that an internet user may face frequently. With the increasing penetration of internet and digital technologies in every sphere of life, the issues related to cybersecurity and privacy are becoming commonplace. Unauthorized surveillance in the name of cybersecurity is posing a risk to users' privacy online. The term cybersecurity is generally related to the measures taken to protect online information as well as to secure the infrastructure on which it relies. Technologies that are interconnected, ubiquitous, and allow easy connection to the internet have become an integral part of our everyday lives for conducting social, economic, and political interactions. The web provides the infrastructure not just for communication but for a whole range of services such as governmental services, healthcare, finance, transportation, e-commerce, etc. This results in a large amount of data that is generated by the user on an everyday basis, thus exposing them to cybersecurity risks. Privacy as a concept relates to the idea of secrecy, as in being able to limit the amount of information others can know about oneself. The Western culture notion of privacy engages with the idea of having a certain degree of autonomy over one's public face, that is, the image one presents to the rest of the world. It is up to the individuals to choose what information they would like to make available and to whom. Privacy also has an element of anonymity. Anonymity here relates to the idea of people's right to be protected against unwanted attention and scrutiny untouched by surveillance or any other data collection strategies. Privacy as a concept has a culturally and historically contingent meaning. However, contemporary conception of private life and public space have altered with the coming of digital media as well, where both have become intermixed and hybrid. With the coming of mass media in the later half of the 20th century, the notion of private and public life began to be complicated. Mass media led to the emergence of public personalities or celebrities which were unseen before. The rise of media celebrity in the 20th century also influenced the idea of privacy or private life. Invading into the personal lives of these media personalities became a legitimate practice and continues to be so. Now, the contemporary data-driven network society has further affected cultural construction of privacy. In view of contemporary times, the spaces that are not surveilled are few and far between. Seeking secrecy and anonymity might not be as prominent a requirement as compared to confidentiality of personal information. John L. Mills, in Privacy, the Lost Right, suggests that there are 4 broad categories of legal rights concerning privacy, which are: Number 1, freedom of personal autonomy, the most obvious being freedom of choice. Number 2, the right to control personal information, which relates to the definition or the right not to have one's personal information disclosed to the public. Number 3, the right to control personal property, including one's name and likeness as well as information about oneself. Number 4, the right to control and to protect personal physical space, which suggests the freedom from unwanted intrusion, surveillance, and intimidation. These rights, however, are not absolute, and the state has the power to intervene whenever required. While on the one hand, the threats of terrorism and cyber crimes have encouraged the government to collect more data, on the other hand, questions have been raised on the economic value of information that is attained through digital surveillance. Data has become a commodity just like any other good or service which is traded in the market. This has furthered the impetus on more privacy-enabling policies and legislation to help prevent widespread misuse of private personal information by various organizations. Now let's talk about digital surveillance, scope and tools. In simple terms, digital surveillance refers to the tracking of the online activity of an individual by tracing their digital footprints. Digital surveillance differs from other forms of surveillance in that the policing of physical bodies based on physical proximity has now shifted to the policing online. Anyone having an online presence is surveilled in cyberspace either by government or commercial organizations by making use of digital surveillance tools. There are many tools that allow organizations and individuals to track, trace, and monitor the actions of others. These tools are often used alongside other well-known instruments of biometrics, CCTV, credit card transaction data, identity card data, etc. Digital data tools make an addition to these existing tools. Some of the digital surveillance tools that we know are cookies. One of the most popular forms of surveillance by commercial enterprises are cookies. A cookie is a small piece of text that is automatically downloaded onto a computer when its browser visits a web page. It then records one's internet activity and sends this information back to its home website. Cookies are integral to the interactive and personalized experience of the web as they record user preferences as well as web surfing activity and use that information for serving a more personalized experience to the users. Some browsers allow disabling cookies, but doing so obstructs one's access to the website and makes it impossible to use those sites. Apart from these cookies, internet search engines such as Google and Yahoo also collect user data. Web browsers like Google and Yahoo store the IP address and search terms of every search performed on their site. The purpose of collecting this type of data is to target advertisements at web users on the basis of an overall profiling of search interest. Another data surveillance tool is data mining. It is another way of storing user data and using it for targeted advertisements. Using data mining, users' messages and mailboxes are scanned for words and terms in order to gain insights into a user's interest for advertising purposes. Making use of certain data collection algorithms has also become commonplace these days. Algorithms learn user preferences and store them so that users can be served with targeted content and their interest can be met. All this large amount of personal data that is collected by making use of various digital surveillance tools is stored by these organizations and converted into databases, which is then used for market profiling and targeted advertising research. In the last decade, mobile phone surveillance has also emerged as an extremely important surveillance tool that not only captures digital communication but also real-world location and movement of a given user. One of the uses of mobile phone surveillance is for criminal investigations. However, there are commercial uses as well that mobile phone surveillance can be put to. There are a number of mobile phone tracking software applications available which allow a third party to track and monitor the position of a mobile phone on the internet with GPS accuracy. Challenges for cybersecurity. Having discussed some of the tools of digital surveillance, now let's discuss what some of the challenges of cybersecurity are that users face commonly these days. First and foremost, the most important cybersecurity challenge that has emerged over the recent years is that of complexity of the connected environment. We now live in a world which is fully electronic and which is created by interconnected networks. This virtual networked world runs parallel with our physical environment, and the amount of data that is generated in this environment surmounts any amount of data that is generated or stored that was generated or stored earlier. The modern economy is dependent on this vast quantity of digital data that users generate through online financial transactions, through their day-to-day activities for communication, entertainment, travel, online browsing, and other such routine activities. The systems that facilitate such electronic transactions and communication also collect user data, their preferences, and other personal details and track their online activity as well as their physical movements. Users are constantly being profiled by their data elements, being combined, connected, compared, and linked to other information such as to their place of work, their profession, the school they attended, the university they go to, etc., so as to target specific advertisements to them. This type of data can also be used for identity theft. With the Internet of Things becoming a reality, even more data is collected on an everyday basis through the use of sensors within devices which autonomously report on location status and surrounding environment and provide real-time updates or help monitor and control devices remotely. This has increased the complexity of cyberspace and has thus made it even more difficult to keep this place secure. Users or individuals in general are persistently connected to a network through their mobile devices, and they make use of always-on services or third-party apps which also affect what kind of data is collected, stored, and how they are profiled as a consumer or as a person to whom certain ads can be targeted. These interconnected systems are globally accessible and therefore they are also inherently vulnerable. While the scale of information flowing through these cyberspace has grown over the years, its value to corporations, to the government, and also to those having malicious intent has also expanded. We constantly leave behind digital footprints which any particular organization, institution, or person can trace and track, leaving us more exposed to threats. Apart from threats from commercial organizations, state-sponsored threats are also becoming a growing menace. Ronald Dibert, director of the Citizen Lab at the Munk School of Global Affairs, University of Toronto, explains that cybercrime is growing in frequency and complexity for several reasons. He lists those reasons which I quote here, the first one being the number of users coming online, including individuals, business organizations, and governments, is growing rapidly, creating a growing baseline of potential targets. Second, the ways in which we communicate and share information online has changed fundamentally over the last several years. With the growth of social networking, cloud computing, and mobile forms of connectivity, we share more data with each other and entrust it to third parties outside our immediate control and click on links and documents over several networking platforms and services with a greater degree of frequency. Third, he argues that because companies rarely disclose security breaches to the public for competitive and reputational reasons, there is limited information about how attacks are carried out, which could ultimately hinder cybersecurity efforts. As was mentioned before, mobile surveillance is becoming a common problem with the increasing use of mobile applications and mobile phone technology. The threats have also advanced over the years and they now have moved into the mobile sphere. The number of cell phones in use has grown exponentially all around the world and it is only expected to grow further. Our mobile devices contain a plethora of personal information which can be beneficial to people with malicious intent. It is a routine practice for people to carry their mobile devices everywhere and use them for almost anything and everything, be it for communication or to access email, to take photos or to play games, or to locate nearby stores, restaurants, or to find a cab for yourself online, or to use it for net banking and whatnot. As a result, organizations with commercial interests are all striving to reach out to consumers and prospective clients on these devices that they use every day. Therefore, the consumer has become more vulnerable to chances of cyber threats. Contributing to the menace of cybercrime is the availability of facilities like free public Wi-Fi, which can put mobile devices at increased risk of having data intercepted. Also, the easy availability of malware, which can be easily installed into any user's mobile phone, also poses a security risk. Malware can be installed through various apps that people download on their smartphones. Then it can be targeted at any particular user for malicious intent. Yet another problem that we face today is that of big data paradox. It is a paradox in the sense that whether it is a risk or a solution to the existing cybersecurity problems is yet unclear. Big data can be defined as vast stores of information gathered from both traditional sources and the new ones such as web data, social media data, text data, time and location data that are derived from social networks and so on. The availability of such data is in certain cases seen as a solution to any problem that might involve verifying the identity of a person. However, this data-driven approach raises its own set of issues from the perspective of cybersecurity. One of the issues is how to secure information in a big data context, and the second is how to use the new data analytics to sift through network information, including personal information, in order to predict security incidents. While big data is definitely a valuable commercial asset, it holds similar value, if not more, to cyber attackers as well. Therefore, it leaves a lot of scope for security breaches, which will have a potentially serious impact upon the users who provide that data. Coupled with all of these problems is the fact that users are not yet prepared to deal with any such security breach. Not only the commercial organizations, even the government of many nations have not been able to devise a foolproof plan to protect their citizens and users against data breach. Breach preparedness is not a priority yet with organizations. With the government unable to configure how to protect their users against such cases, it adds to the problem of cybersecurity issues for general users online. Organizations are required to comply with various laws and regulations in order to operate in a particular jurisdiction or across various jurisdictions. However, complying with laws and regulations might not be an absolute solution, as it could lead to a false sense of security. Therefore, performing proper risk management requires organizations to identify various areas of potential threats and safeguard those areas or offer solutions in return. Like any other issue that might affect a particular organization, cybersecurity is an issue which requires effective risk management and dynamic implementation of security. Now let's discuss databases, data mining, and related discourses. By now, it is clear that the web can be understood as a large repository of data. The interactive medium of the web results in the creation of a large pool of information, which also helps in the creation of large-scale databases. This data can be operated on to facilitate marketing processes as well as for security and law enforcement. Vincent Miller suggests that there are two terms that can be used in relation to these operations that are performed, which are data mining, that is using computer programs to sift through large data sets according to some specified criteria. Second is data valence, that is the systematic use of personal data systems in the investigation or monitoring of the actions of one or more persons. For the government, it might involve tracking suspicious terms such as bombs or guns so as to track any security threats to a particular nation. For marketing agencies, it might involve any one of the many demographic income or lifestyle variables and finding them online. Whether it is data mining or data valence, these operations are performed on digital information from the web surfing activities of users, and they are archived so as to create databases. These databases help create social identities for people on the basis of certain parameters. They might categorize an individual as suspicious or not suspicious, as a security risk or a potential security risk in marketing databases. This may be a high value or a low value customer, or a customer who has no value at all. To boil it down, what the internet has been able to achieve is for the marketers and for security agencies to create, collect, and categorize information about individuals in a variety of ways so as to profile them as a certain individual having those traits. In that respect, an individual can have various potential identities and they can keep adding to it over time. An individual's online life has become raw material for production of consumer identities, as whatever activities they take part in the online world is turned into data points that are organized, manipulated, and transformed into a dematerialized identity to be targeted by those who have something to sell. Academic Roger Clark defines profiling as a means of generating subjects or prospects from within a larger population and involves inferring a set of characteristics of a particular class of a person from past experience, then searching data holdings for individuals with a close fit to that set of characteristics. Furthermore, these profiles are ever evolving and are maintained and authenticated by a series of features which include a sign-in procedure, authenticating the actual consumer as opposed to just the computer being used, financial transactions that take place online, cookies which keep track of online browsing behavior, etc. Why is the surveillance society a threat? As discussed, privacy and the right to privacy are not fixed or inherent. They are culturally, historically, and legally contingent. There emerge a lot of issues when these rights are mishandled online, especially in an age of constant and uncontrolled surveillance. People can be harmed by the misuse of their personal information that they have not willingly supplied. The use of personal or sensitive information collected without a person's consent or knowledge can have negative consequences involving financial consequences or otherwise. In a possible case scenario, the information that is collected about any individual can also be used against them without their knowledge or without them being informed about the source of data collection. When conducting activities online, we tend to buy things from e-commerce websites. We might buy gifts for families or friends from these e-commerce portals, and we might not personally be interested in those things that we have bought. But once a purchase has been made, similar products are shown to you as a targeted customer. Case in point being, you might have purchased a self-help book from Amazon for a friend, and therefore you get recommended the same book or similar books every time you visit a certain website online because your footprints have been traced, and therefore you are profiled as a person who is interested in those self-help books without you having any particular interest in them. Our computer system helps these websites to collect data, which further helps profile you as a particular individual having certain kinds of traits. Data profiling is one issue, but data collected by commercial and government organizations is in itself not fully secure and leads to inevitable personal data breaches. Incidents like credit card fraud, identity theft have become commonplace these days. They are a constant reminder of how much information about us is collected and held by corporate and public bodies on their computers and servers, and how substantial such databases are to people or organizations with criminal intent. The need of the hour is to be vigilant about what type of data we share online and with whom we share it. With that, we come to the end of our discussion on cybersecurity and issues of privacy. Thank you for listening.